Chapter 49, Make Your Own Pod. After all that glowing and floating, something happened the next day that made me fall back to the Earth's crust. 1. He had been found. 2. He was back. 3. I could go see him right now if I wanted to. I put on a different shirt from the used hospital clothing pile. The nurse had washed my other clothes and tennis shoes, so I put on my old shorts, but my shirt was too stained to ever wear it again. I pulled my hair back into a ponytail. My face still felt tight and alien because of all the crying I did last night. But for once, it felt nice to be the one who could act crazy. Maybe I didn't have to be in charge all the time. I pulled the drawstring tight around my waist and tried to focus. But there were too many thoughts in my head at once. My head felt cramped. Last night on the phone, Julie said she'd been away in the jungles of Guatemala, working as a nurse and giving kids shots and stuff. It had something to do with the free clinic where she volunteered, and she didn't have electronic communication sometimes. That's why her cell phone made that weird noise when I tried to call her. Before she went to Guatemala, she had called Dad and left him a message on his cell phone telling him where she would be and to check in on us, but he never called her back. She was coming to get us. She said she was 5 hours away, and she'd leave early the next morning. After I'd talked to her, Pirate Doctor got on the phone and gave her the phone number and address of the little hospital, and Officer B's phone number, and they talked about other things, but I don't know what, because I fell asleep on the living room reception area couch. And if that wasn't enough to make my brain feel suffocated, this morning, Pirate Doctor came into our hospital room while we were eating. He said, "I have something important to say." He paused, and his good eye got all twitchy. "Just say it," I said, because all I could think about was Julie smashed somewhere across the road. Without Julie, what would we do? Finally, he said, "Last night, they found your dad. He's at the police station now." That was not what I'd expected to hear. Dad left us at the Jiffy Company gas station, and he wasn't coming back. He'd disappeared like all those years before, and if he didn't want to be found, then no one would find him. Sometimes you don't really know how you feel about something until it happens. And right there, in that moment, I needed to sit down. It wasn't fair. He shouldn't be allowed to come back. But he was here. Pirate Doctor asked, "Do you want to see him?" I shook my head. But then, what was I supposed to do? "You don't have to," he said. All I could think about was what happened 3 days ago, the morning Dad left us. And no matter how I tried, I couldn't keep the memory away. It was here, loud and demanding, having a full-on Billy meltdown, forcing me to decide what Billy and me should do. Survival strategy number 50. If you can, be brave. "You don't have to go," Pirate Doctor said again. I stared at him. I knew that. I knew I didn't have to see Dad, but "I don't have to go, right?" asked Billy, rubbing her hand along her cheek. You could hardly see any bruise anymore. Now it almost looked like a regular cheek. But that cheek knew what it had been through, and so did Billy. Nurse Janice took Billy's temperature again. She smelled like Nesquik. "No," said Pirate Doctor. "You can just stay here with Nurse Janice and me." "Maybe I should go," I said. Nurse Janice said to Pirate Doctor, "Old Ben's in room 2. I think it's bronchitis." Pirate Doctor nodded, but his eyes were still on us. "There's no shoulds about it. You don't have to go. Officer Buck said they have all the information they need for now." "I know," I said, trying to rustle on my shoes. Billy came over and sat next to me on the bed. She patted my knee. She seemed a lot older than she had been a few days ago, like maybe I didn't always have to protect her, even though I wanted to. Maybe sometimes she could protect me too. She asked, "Are you going, Liberty?" Everyone looked at me. Even Janice stayed for a second to hear. "I probably should," I said. "I'm not," said Billy. She had wanted him to be a real dad. "It's your choice," Pirate Doctor said, "but before you go, make sure you finish your breakfast. You don't want to go over there all empty," said Pirate Doctor. I stared at Billy and back at Pirate Doctor, and even at Nurse Janice. I thought of Mom in her ocean heaven, of the Lavender Lady and Orson and Caterpillar Eyebrows at the shop at the hotel, and Apron Lady in the breakfast room, and Roger in his bush tunnels. And then I thought of Tattoo Guy and his lonely sister surrounded by rats, and Officer B and Carla, who had promised she would keep Billy and me together, and finally Julie, driving to get us right this minute, and how she would actually be here in a few hours, standing on the steps of this weird little hospital with Pirate Doctor inside. All those faces bumped around in my cranium, smiling at me, wishing me well, and instead of pushing my feelings away, I let them come. Happiness from the ends of my hair, all the way down to my toenails. I had people watching out for me, my own mixed up pod, wanting good things for us. I was ready to face Dad. Chapter 51, Face It. Right through that door, said Officer B, pointing. Wait, I got it. He pushed the door open for me. I'll go in there with you, if you need me. All right, I said. So maybe police officers weren't all bad. Officer B took off his hat. His bald head was bright and glossy. He followed me through the door. Dad stood up from his folding chair. He looked the same, but he had on clean clothes, and his hair was combed, and it didn't look like he'd stopped eating or anything. I guess I imagined maybe he couldn't look normal because he'd left his 2 daughters alone at a gas station 3 days ago, where just about anything could have happened. People should have looked normal. People shouldn't look normal after something like that. But no, he looked regular, except for the handcuffs. Real steel handcuffs. Trapped. He was the prey. I'd sat in the same room with Carla and the gray guy about what felt like a million years ago, but it was only yesterday. And of course, the table was in the same place, even though it felt like it should be somewhere different. Officer B walked across the room and sat on the couch. He picked up a magazine and pretended to read, but his eyes peeked over. Is this really necessary? Dad asked Officer B, holding up his wrists. He still seemed normal, except when I got up close, he looked really tired. His eyes were bloodshot and dark circles underneath, like he hadn't slept in days. Good. Officer B nodded. It's for everyone's safety. I'm sorry. But he didn't sound very sorry. Dad sighed and sat down. I walked over to the other folding chair across the table and sat down too. Dad stared at the bandage on my forehead, then he cleared his throat. How are you? This is what I wanted to say. Number 1, how do you think I am? Number 2, I hate you. But instead, I said, fine. Good, he said. That's good. We sat for another minute. Officer B cleared his throat and turned the page on his magazine. What happened to your head? He asked. I hit it. Does it hurt? I nodded. Tears came into my eyes, but I pushed them away. I would not cry in front of him. How's Billy? I could feel the tectonics, all those questions, all those things never said. Fine. Good. Dad cleared his throat again. Crack, crack, crack. Everything inside me might burst into pieces. I stood up. I couldn't be in this room anymore, staring at his frozen face and eyes, which wouldn't even look at me, faking it all over the place. I'm leaving. Dad stood. Wait, just wait. I stopped. I told the police officer I wanted to see you girls. Obviously, Billy isn't here, and that's my fault. So let me talk to you. Just give me a moment. He shook his hands even more. Please. For a second, things felt different. He'd never talked to me like that before, like I was a real person. And when he finally looked at me, I saw something unfamiliar. Was he sorry? I sat down. It just got so crazy, he began. I mean, everything just got to be too much, you know? He looked at me, his eyes kind of pleading. I never thought I'd find myself in this situation. Then, there you were. I thought I could do it. After all this time, I really thought I could. His voice trailed off. You get what I'm trying to say? He wasn't going to make me feel sorry for him. I would not be his prey. I would not fall victim to obvious pretending. Officer B said you were sick or something. Dad nodded. You don't look sick. He scrunched up his face and sighed. I know, but I am. I have these disorders, inside my brain. You know what a disorder is, right? Yes, I said. I couldn't tell if he was making it up. I folded my arms across my chest and tried to pretend I was ice. That's why I left in the first place. I have some problems. I mean, I've had them. It's just, they get worse with stress. And that's why I don't like to be around a lot of people. I shouldn't be around people. Then why did you let Julie go? Why did you let us go with you? I convinced her I was fine. I really thought I was better. I thought I could do this. I wanted to take care of you girls, like I should have years ago. When Julie called and told me what had happened, I thought this was my chance to fix everything. I really wanted to be the dad I should have been. I was feeling healthy. I feel pretty good when I'm on my own program, with no one to answer or interrupt me. He cleared his throat. I folded my arms across my chest. I have a talent, a gift, you could say, where I can actually sit in silence for a long time and feel totally normal. I mean, I can sit and not say a word, not even when someone expects me to. It's amazing how much you can learn about someone when you stop talking. Dad cleared his throat again. I sat. Silence really can be your best friend if you can stand it. Most people can't.